Hello, in this tutorial I'm going to be going over how you multiply and divide fractions. So before we begin, just to recap fractions, so if we have a fraction, for example 1 over 2, the numerator is the number at the top and the denominator is the number at the bottom. And the reason I'm telling you this is that I'll be using these terms throughout this video. Okay, so to begin, let's start with how you multiply fractions. If we have a question where we have 1 over 2 multiplied by 1 over 3. Okay, so when we have two fractions multiplied by each other, our answer will be a fraction, and then we can do any simplification after we've got our initial answer as a fraction. So in terms of multiplying, the process is pretty straightforward. You multiply the numerators by each other, so you multiply along the tops and you write down your answer. So this will be 1 multiplied by 1. And you multiply along the bottom, so you multiply the denominators by each other. So in this case, we'd have 2 multiplied by 3. So we've got 1 multiplied by 1 over 2 multiplied by 3. Let's work this out. So 1 times 1 is 1. All over 2 times 3 is 6. Now in this form, we can't simplify this fraction, so this is the answer. So a half, or 1 over 2, multiplied by a third, or 1 over 3, equals 1 over 6. And really, essentially, what we've done is if we had a circle and this circle was split into 3 equal segments, where one of these segments would be equal to 1 over 3, we have essentially, this question asks for a half of this segment. So what is this segment here? And if you were to divide all the other remaining segments into 2 pieces, so therefore dividing them by a half, you notice that you end up with 6 segments, and we've asked for 1 of that 6, which is the answer that we had. So with multiplying fractions, that is pretty much all there is to it. So let's just go over another few examples. If we had 2 over 7 multiplied by 3 over 4. You multiply along the top, so 2 multiplied by 3 goes at the top. You multiply along the bottom, so 7 multiplied by 4 goes on the bottom, and that gives us 6 over 28, because 4 times 7 is 28. Now this fraction can be simplified because both numbers at the top share a common factor. The easiest common factor that we can find between the top and the bottom is 2, because both of these numbers are even numbers. So 6 divided by 2 would give us 3. 28 divided by 2 would give us 14. Okay, it's the same fraction, just simplified, and this cannot be simplified any further. Okay, if we had a question where we had 3 fractions multiplied by each other, so we'll have a half multiplied by 2 over 3 multiplied by 1 over 4. The process is still the same. You multiply along the tops and you multiply along the bottoms, or the denominators. So the top of the fraction will become 1 times 2 times 1. The bottom of the fraction would become 2 times 3 times 4. Okay, so the top would give us 2, and the bottom would give us, well, 2 times 3 is 6, and 6 times 4 is 24. And again, both the number at the top and the bottom share a common factor, and we know this because they're both even, so we can very easily divide the top and the bottom number by 2. So 1 over 12 would be the answer to this fraction. Okay, let's move on to dividing fractions. Okay, with dividing fractions, the process is slightly different. So let's say, for example, we have the fractions 1 over 2 divided by 1 over 3. Okay, so what you do here is you look at the fraction that's being divided into. So here we have 1 over 2 divided into 1 over 3. So the fraction we're dividing into is 1 over 3. Now what you do is you rewrite this question. The half remains as it is. The 1 over 3 gets flipped upside down. In maths we say we take the inverse of this fraction. So 1 over 2 remains the same, 1 over 3 becomes 3 over 1, and you multiply the fractions together. And now it's multiplication. The process is exactly the same as what we've just done. Work along the tops, work along the bottoms. So 1 times 3 for the top over 2 times 1, which gives us 3 over 2. Now, you'll notice that the numerator is bigger than the denominator. That's okay, it's just a top-heavy fraction. So let's just do another example just to set this in stone. So if we had 2 over 5 divided by, let's say, 1 over 10, then that becomes 2 over 5 remains the same, multiplied by 10 over 1. And then again, it's multiplying now, so you multiply along the tops and along the bottoms. So that's 2 times 10 over 5 times 1, which gives us 20 over 5. Now you'll notice that there's a common factor between the top number and the bottom number. So the common factor here is 5. And 20 divided by 5 is 4. 5 divided by 5 is 1. And when you have any fraction where the denominator is 1, you can just write the numerator on its own. So 4 over 1 is 4, i.e. if 4 apples were divided by one child, that child would get the 4 apples. Okay, so you'll notice that when we divide, the fraction that gets flipped is the fraction that we're dividing into, or you could say it's the second fraction in the question. So this is the second fraction and this would be the first. Okay, so just to do some questions to close this off, let's have question A, where we've got 3 over 7 multiplied by 1 over 2. B can be 1 over 4 multiplied by 3 over 9. C, 3 over 5 divided by 1 over 2. And D can be 1 over 7 divided by 3 over 4. Okay, if you'd like to pause the video now and give yourself some time to do these questions, and then unpause the video and we'll go through the answers. Okay, now the video has been unpaused, let's work through A, B, C and D in order. So starting with A, this is a multiplication. So we multiply along the top and we multiply along the bottom. So this becomes 3 times 1 for the top, 7 times 2 for the bottom, and that gives us 3 over 14. And we can't simplify this fraction. B would be 1 multiplied by 3 for the top, 4 multiplied by 9 for the bottom. That gives us 3 for the top, all over 4 times 9 is 36. Now we can simplify this fraction because the number 3 goes into both the top number and the bottom, i.e. the numerator and the denominator have a common factor of 3. Okay, so if we want to simplify this, 3 divided by 3 is 1, and 36 divided by 3 is 12. And this cannot be simplified any further, so that is the simplified version of 3 over 36. Now moving on to C and D, so these are divide. So again, it sometimes helps just to rewrite the question. but with that second fraction, or the fraction we're dividing into, flipped, and we change the sign to a multiplication. And now again the process is exactly the same as A and B, so 3 times 2 is 6 all over 5. And then D, again, I think it's best just to rewrite the question but with that final fraction flipped and the sign changed from divide to multiplication. So this becomes 1 times 4 is 4, and 7 over 3 is 21. Okay, so thank you for watching this video. If you have any comments, then please leave them below.